Hey Facebook. So I'm just popping on for a little while to do a quick live. I posted something yesterday about boundaries, comparing them from childhood to adulthood, and I want to talk a little bit about that and how they relate to trauma and intimacy issues and relationships in general. So I'm out at the park today. It's a little bit chilly, but it's sunny too. Sun's just starting to kind of go down a little bit. But so I just thought I'd pop on for a little while and do a live on this, because it's, I've been having some breakthroughs with this lately. So yesterday I posted something. For those that haven't read it, there's technically three types of groups that we kind of fall into with regards to like our boundary types. So if you were, let's say, group A. If you're in group A, you were probably raised with very liberal parents. I don't mean political party wise. I mean like they just they let you run free. You either were doted on, you were spoiled rotten, given anything you wanted. You rarely ever heard the word no. You were the golden child, could do no wrong. Or you were the opposite end of that, where you were like completely neglected. Like your parents just didn't give a shit. You could do whatever you wanted to do, and as long as you didn't blow something up, they didn't care. These are like typically the parents, like, they didn't pick out your clothes or give you any kind of guidance. They were just like, I don't care if you go out in your underwear, just leave me the hell alone. Like, they just, no guidance, no support, no love, no boundaries either. So what happens is you go into group B. So we're the type, I fall into group B. I can speak to this group very well, where you had really strict parents. You had especially a strict mother, usually. These are the type of people that you don't really have your own boundaries. You can't set boundaries. You can't really be yourself. Like, they control everything. Maybe you were raised in a type of family where they said, we're Catholic. You're Catholic too, whether you want to be or not. We're Christian in this family. We're Democrat in this family. We're Republican in this family. Whatever your parents were, that's what you had to be, because that's just the way it was. It was their house. You were their child. You were their property, and you had no freedom to be an individual, to be you. So then you have group C, which, this is a rare group. Maybe you had that unique balance where, you had the love and support from your parents, but you also, like, you had your freedom to kind of make some choices of your own too. This would be parents that were like, hey, here's 3 outfits, pick one out, which one you want to wear. Or they would let you wear your Batman costume to Chili's. They just a little bit more liberal in their parenting, but still structured. Whereas like group B, mom picked out the clothes. This is what you're wearing. This is what I want to see you in. This is what you're wearing. It's very rigid, very strict. So type C is rare. Like, we don't have a lot of people in that group. But, what I find that, those of us that are in the 40 and older crowd, we tend to be in group B. Most of us, not all of us, but most of us had strict parenting. They were very controlling. And then most people that are under 40 tend to be in group A. They have a lot more, freedom. Their parents weren't as strict. They didn't have the boundaries. And when you think of like the fact that so many type A's are now parenting and teaching our kids, it's kind of scary, because they're not teaching them any boundaries. So what you're having is more and more kids growing up not respecting the word no, not respecting boundaries. They're not being given any. And so how does this look like in your childhood? So a person that was like in a type B category, maybe this sounds familiar to some of you, You know, if you want to share anything, please feel free to do so in the comments. You know, I'll read them all when I can later. But you know, maybe your mom didn't respect any boundaries. Maybe you lived in a house that had a no locked doors rule. So, you know, mom barged in anytime she wanted. Now, when you're going through puberty, you know, that's kind of a little trauma. And this is one thing I talk about in my book, is little trauma, big trauma, and re-trauma. So with regards to sexual trauma, a little trauma would be something like, you know, you got busted as a kid masturbating and you got shamed for it, and now you kind of carry that with you your whole life. That's a little trauma. A big trauma, you know, obviously rape, incest, that kind of thing, molestation, that's big trauma. And then the re-trauma would be like if you know, typically people that have had the little trauma and the big trauma later in life, they suffer re-traumas. This could be, you know, a rape in a relationship, or you know, just not setting boundaries in a relationship. And typically those of us that fall into category B, we have really hard time setting boundaries in our adult years. And so this is, you know, what I want to point out to parents is that it's really important that you respect your child's right to privacy to a degree. I'm not saying your child can do anything and everything they want. I'm not saying you can't go search their room if you got right or whatever. But when your child's going through puberty and they want that privacy, you know, to get undressed without mom sitting in the room, give it to them. Like, I don't know how many of you experienced this, but, you know, mom barged in my room anytime she wanted. And it didn't matter if I was naked. And I was like, Mom, get out, leave me alone. I'm you know, I'm not dressed. I would hear, oh, I'm your mother. I've seen you naked your whole life. You know, or what's the big deal? We got the same thing. And she never, ever respected that boundary. And it, like, every time she did it, it would piss me off. Like, just get out, leave me alone. Let me get undressed and, you know, and redressed in peace. I don't need an audience. So I didn't have that boundary. I wasn't allowed to have my modesty. I wasn't allowed to have that boundary of modesty. So is it any surprise that I grew up to be a stripper? You know, in my 20s, I was a stripper. And when people say, how did you do that? How did you get on stage naked in front of people? Wasn't that embarrassing? No. Being naked was the most natural thing in the world to me in front of people. I was afraid of falling in those heels, but not of being naked, because it wasn't a boundary that I ever had respected. So, you know, parents, think about that. You know, if you got a daughter and you're not respecting her boundaries, she's not going to know how to set them when she's older with a man. You know, he's going to do whatever he wants to her, or she might end up being a stripper. You never know. But, you know, and for the boys, you know, some boys, they have moms that don't respect that boundary either, you know, that she walks in whenever she wants. Or if you were raised in a household that had like the no locked doors thing, I feel this is one of the things that really conditions boys sexually, you know, for their future, because, you know, they're going through puberty and they start masturbating and they're always in fear that they're going to get caught. So it becomes this thing that they have to do really quickly and get it over with before they get caught and shamed. And so then they go into adulthood not being able to last long, because they never conditioned their body, trained their body to do so, because they never had the privacy, you know, that it wasn't respected, that, you know, they didn't have that freedom to do that. So, you know, I know parents don't really like the thought of their children, you know, being sexual beings, but here's the thing: if you don't allow your child that space to explore their body and give them their privacy and give them that, you know, respect that boundary, if you don't give them the space to explore their own body, they're going to go out and explore someone else's body, you know? So you have to ask yourself, what would you rather? Your child, you know, teenager, you know, exploring their own body, or going out and having sex with someone before they're really ready to handle the consequences of it? So, you know, that's something to really consider, you know, for parents to really consider, because, you know, we all have a right to our body and our feelings and our emotions. You know, there's parents that are like, well, you know, we're Christian in this house and that's what you are. You know, I went head to toe with my mom my whole life about religion. You know, I started out calling myself an atheist just because it pissed her off. I wasn't really an atheist. I didn't know what I was, but it pissed her off. And she was insisting, this is what you are. I'm telling you what you are. And I'm telling you that's not what I am. And so I even into my 30s, I had this argument with her. We christened you Catholic. That's what you are. And until you go change it on record somewhere, that's what you are. No, Mom, I'm whatever I choose to be. You know, but I had this battle with her my whole life. And a lot of people do. A lot of people have these parents that, you know, you are what we raised you to be. You are what we tell you to be. You know, it's very controlling and rigid. And you're not doing your child any favors. You're really not doing them any favors, because they're not going to be able to set boundaries healthy in adulthood. And so what does, you know, these boundary types look like in adulthood? Well, if you're in category A, you know, people that are in category A, not always, not all of them, but most of them are the snoops. They're the control freaks. These are the people that have no problem questioning you. In a relationship, if you leave your phone open, they're going to go through it. If you leave your, you know, your journal laying out, they're going to read it. If you leave your computer open, they're going to flip through it. If you leave your email open, they're going to read it. They'll question your every move. What are you doing? Where are you going? Who are you with? They want to know everything you do. They want to know everything about you. You know, they're all up in your business. And, but they don't want you in their business. You know, leave them alone. You know, they don't respect your boundaries, but they don't want you all up in their, you know, their boundaries either. So what happens is a lot of times these type A people tend to be narcissistic, not, you know, not necessarily a full-blown narcissist, but they have narcissistic traits. And they typically end up with people in group B who typically tend to be codependents, or, you know, just passive aggressive, or, you know, this multiple things that it could be. But typically they tend to be really passive and codependent and allow a lot of bullshit, because they don't set the boundaries for the type A. And that's perfect for type A, because they're not going to respect your boundaries anyway. But for somebody that's in group B, you know, this might be familiar. You know, maybe you've gone into a relationship with someone and, you know, initially the relationship's great. You know, everything's going smooth. You know, they're respecting you and, you know, like checking in with you, or, you know, giving you, you know, that morning, noon, and night text or whatever. Some people like that shit. But, you know, there's a consistent pattern for the beginning of the relationship, and then suddenly something changes and you start suspecting something, like their behavior changes, and you start wondering what it is that they're doing. Like, are they up to something? Are they, you know, fooling around with somebody? What's going on? So you don't really want to question them. If you're in group B, you're hesitant to question them. And one of the reasons for that is because you don't want to mother them. You don't want to overstep boundaries, because you yourself know how it felt to have your boundaries not respected. You know, as somebody that had my mom read my diary, you know, I would never do that to someone, because I know how it feels to have done to me. So group B people tend to be, you know, overly respectful of other people's boundaries, to the point where we just passive and we let too much shit go and we don't ask any questions. We're like, oh, okay, you know, we just let shit go. It's pissing us off. You know, we're wondering, like, what's going on? Why are they acting this way? Why are they doing this? But we don't want to say anything. We don't want to rock the boat. We don't want to mother them. We don't want to be a nag. So we let it go a little while until things start, you know, building up. And then one day, maybe you get the nerve to ask this person, like, you know, why are you home so late? What happened? Or, you know, where have you been? And type A's like to respond with, what are you, my mother? And that usually shuts a type B down really quick. Like, you know, we don't want to be compared to their mother, and we don't, because, you know, it makes us think about our own mother and our own situation, our own, you know, disrespected boundaries. So it shuts us down, and we're like, oh, no, I mean, I'm just wondering. I mean, you know, like we back off. You know, I've done that so many times where I just backed off and I didn't really push the issue, because I wanted to keep peace in the relationship. I didn't want to be a bitch. I didn't want to be a nag. I didn't want to mother him. So I didn't ask any questions. And so what happens is, over time, if the person's not cheating, they're going to start cheating. Typically, that's the way it goes, because they don't respect you. They don't respect your boundaries because you've given them none. And so, ladies, you know, if you've ever been in a situation where you dated a guy, or you slept with him too soon, and you want more, and he's like, I don't want a relationship, and then a few months later you see him in a relationship with someone else, and you're like, what's going on with that? Why? He said he didn't want a relationship. Is there something wrong with me? Well, yeah, it kind of is. You didn't set any boundaries. If you let shit slide, if you didn't have values and make him respect those values and those boundaries and put effort into getting to know you, he's not going to. If he didn't put any effort into getting you, he's not going to put any effort into keeping you. So of course he's going to, move on. And what ends up happening is he ends up with somebody else. Chances are that person set boundaries for him. And so I personally feel that this is kind of like, the key to evolution of relationships right here, is that type B group people need to start learning to set boundaries. If they start enforcing and setting boundaries in relationships, it's going to force type A's to evolve, evolve or die in a sense, because you're in a relationship with a man and he's type A and he's pushing your boundaries and he's threatening to walk out the door, give tough love, because essentially, if you look at the work of Sam Bodkin, one of the things he says is that narcissism is actually PTSD. And in a way to handle people with narcissism is to treat them like children with PTSD. And so what is it that children need? They need structure. They need boundaries, healthy boundaries, and rules and restrictions, As much as they may hate those things, when they have them, they feel loved and supported. So think about it. There's been times when mom told you no because it was something that was going to hurt you. So she told you no to keep you safe. But people that had no boundaries as a child and they didn't hear no, in a sense, they didn't really feel safe. They didn't really feel loved. They didn't feel like anyone cared enough to set a boundary for them. So I believe, this is, my personal opinion, that in a lot of relationships, type A's are looking for structure. Initially they might fight it, they might run, but ultimately they want those boundaries. They want to be with a woman that's going to respect herself enough to set those boundaries and say, no, I'm not putting up with your bullshit. There's the door. You got to be willing to lose him. You got to be willing to say bye. If he says, well, what are you, my mother? No, I'm not your fucking mother, but there's a door. You can go live with her. You have to be willing to set those boundaries and say that. And if he's a type A guy, he's going to do, one of three things. He's either going to leave and never come back, which is probably a good thing for you. That leaves you free to have the right person in your life. Or he's going to leave and he's going to think shit over and he's going to realize he had it good and he's going to come back. Or he's going to stay. He's going to realize, that you are setting boundaries and asking questions because you love him and you don't want to lose him, Whereas, I think in some cases when you don't ask questions, when you just let a guy run amok and you do whatever he wants and you don't ask, what are you up to? Why haven't I heard from you in a week? What are you doing? If you don't ask questions, if you just act like you don't care, then he thinks you don't care. He doesn't feel loved. He doesn't feel supported because he's not being given boundaries. And on the surface, men will say, oh, I don't want anybody to tell me what to do. I'm the boss of me, blah, blah, blah. And, it's not about control. It's not about telling someone what to do, what they can and can't do. It's simply respecting each other to inform the other of what's going on so that they're not worried. I haven't heard from you in 2 weeks. What's going on? Communication. It's about healthy communication. So, yeah, I really believe that learning these boundaries in childhood is so important, and having parents that respect those boundaries is really important. So, that's kind of what the aim of my work is to kind of get people to that place of balance, to group C. That's where I want to take people, into group C, where they're balanced in themselves and in their relationships and then in their parenting, because it's all about balance. It's all about structure. You know, it's about giving your children that, you know, that freedom to be themselves and be an individual and have their own thoughts and ideas and their privacy, you know, as far as modesty in their body goes. And, you know, but setting rules, you know, and regulations and structure and enforcing them and saying, you know, this isn't okay. This is going to hurt you. You know, I'm not doing this to be mean. I'm doing this because I love you and I want to keep you safe. And so that, you know, carries over into our adult relationships. I believe that type A's, they didn't get that healthy boundary set, and they're craving it. They may not admit it, they may not even know it, but I believe that they're craving it and they want that. And that's why so many of them will end up with a codependent, and it'll be a disastrous relationship, and then they'll go on to a relationship with someone else and it'll be super, you know, healthy and great because that person's setting boundaries and not taking their bullshit. So, you know, just some things to think about. You know, I'm just putting it out there. These are my theories on everything. This is some of the stuff that's going to be in my book as well. The different types of trauma categories, and also, you know, boundaries and how these things affect us. I mean, there's so much more in the book. Like, it's taken me forever to get this book done because I just keep coming up with so much more stuff. And then the more stuff I come up with, it's too wordy, and then I got to, you know, cut it back some. So that's the trial and error thing that I'm doing right now. But anyway, you know, maybe this information is helpful for some of you. I don't know. You know, like, if any of this resonates with you, reach out to me, message me, you know, leave comments if you like. You know, I think a lot of us, you know, have been in one of these groups. We can resonate with some of this stuff. And if you're in group A, you know, don't, you know, own that. Don't feel shame about that if you're in group A, because it's not your fault. You weren't, you were conditioned to not respect boundaries. So, and you can decondition that. You can learn. I believe that. I truly believe that people that are in group A can change, and it starts with the people in group B learning to set healthy boundaries and enforce them, so that people in group A have no choice. They're either going to get with the program or they're going to be alone. So, I mean, you know, it's the way it is. So, yeah, I think I'm leaving some things out because there was so much that I really, really wanted to talk about, but maybe I'll do another live later on this, and if I forgot something. But I head out. Y'all have a great day. Bye.